What's going on, guys? This is Rob. If you guys enjoy my content, make sure you hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that little bell so you never miss out on my sexy voice. Okay, so getting back into Brian Azzarello's Batman Damned Part 2, this one's actually a lot more straightforward than the first one, and really focusing a lot on like Batman's youth. And in reality, Azzarello, I think, really actually kind of tells us what happened here. But one of the important things to bear in mind here is that, again, this basically deals with the aftermath of the Joker, and Azzarello sort of painting this picture that the Joker's existence is tied into the occult side of DC, which is to say like the demons and angels and things like that. Now, one thing to bear in mind here, for those of you guys who are kind of having a gut reaction to that, one thing to bear in mind here is this amounts to what's basically like an Elseworlds or what if story. So it doesn't actually take place in the main DC universe. So it's not like this impacts what's going on with like everything that you're reading in DC Comics right now. It's just out there by itself. And that's why it works. It's part of the Black Label. It's not tied into anything. And so with that happening, of course, in the last video or in the last part of the story, Batman ended up running into John Constantine, who was kind of guiding him through the occult side. Now, it's kind of interesting here because under normal circumstances in DC Comics, Batman's well aware of the occult side. And the way he related to Constantine in the previous part of the story, and even in this one, shows that he still is. But the way that things play out is actually a little bit different. Now, one of the things this does here real quick is it actually ends up transitioning over to Batman's youth. And one of the big hallmarks of Bruce's character is that when he was young, of course, his mom and dad were killed. What this does is that turns it on its head, and it says seemingly his parents weren't killed in the traditional sense, or under the circumstance by which we would expect, which is to say a mugging gone wrong and they were shot and killed by Joe Chill. Instead, the falling apart or the quote-unquote death of Bruce Wayne's family really seemed to come more by way of the fact that like his father was essentially cheating on his mother all the time, and the two of them have fallen out of love, or whatever the case was, that his family was falling apart at the seams. So they were basically going their own separate ways. And so that's kind of the crazy thing here, is because if anything, it's actually kind of a nice reprieve, because one of the things that I'm always tired of seeing when it comes to like the origin of Batman in a different universe is like, oh, and his mom and dad died, you know, and after a while it just kind of grows weary. And it's cool to see it shifted up. It's cool to see that like the world's falling apart. Now, it could very well be that like in the next part that like both of his parents are killed in a mugging gone wrong, but it is interesting to see it kind of shift up a little bit. But the reason why I say this seems to kind of take the place of that is the shooting deaths of Thomas and Martha Wayne are one of the big reasons why Batman doesn't use guns. And this instance, and is basically being in pain and experiencing the fact that his family's falling apart, he takes his toy gun into the living room where his mom's sitting and points it to the back of her head. And when she realizes what's going on, that she begs him never to ever point a gun at somebody, never to use a gun or anything like that. And so that really kind of seems to hit at the idea of this is why Bruce doesn't use guns. Now, what this does from here is we end up having Constantine, who leads Batman to a place called the Cavern, essentially a nightclub. And when he gets down there, we end up finding out that this is basically occupied by Jason Blood, who's a rap artist. But the difference here is that where Jason Blood normally in the DC universe is kind of well-to-do, which is to say he's just kind of like, you know, prim and proper and that kind of a thing, he's starkly different from this version of himself. Now, we don't know exactly how this ties into Etrigan, which is to say, does this version of Jason Blood still say, gone, gone the form of man, arise the demon Etrigan? Does that still happen? Or does like something else play out? Because one of the things you guys will notice is the actual demon Etrigan speaks in rhymes. This version of Jason Blood is literally a hip-hop artist. So it could very well be one of those things where like when, you know, Etrigan has kind of taken over the body of Jason Blood and this is just how he looks, or it could be that like Jason Blood speaks in rhymes and Etrigan speaks normally. We don't really know exactly how all that unfolds. But again, you know, when Batman breaks into this place, one of the things that's made readily apparent is that Batman doesn't need to be here, he doesn't belong here. And even Etrigan kind of jumps on that and says like, hey, you're not supposed to be here, and kind of, you know, rhymes to him and everything. But Batman immediately seizes him and says like, I want to know where the Joker is. Like, I want to know what's going on with the Joker. Like, who killed the Joker, and is the Joker even still alive? Because when you're dealing with the idea of the occult, you're dealing with angels, demons, things along those lines, it's entirely possible the Joker could still be alive or be walking around in some form or fashion. Now, of course, in this instance, Batman walked into more than what he was expecting. This is a very, very important moment here. And the reason why is because Batman's usually never caught unawares. Like, either it's because it's just the plot demands for it, which is 9 times out of 10 how it goes. Well, of course Batman knows because the plot calls for it, or because he does his due diligence. And so because of this, with Batman being taken by surprise, which is to say being surrounded by guns, either it means he doesn't care, or it means this version of Batman's not nearly as intelligent or as good of a detective as the one we would normally expect. But of course, in the middle of all this, he's met by Boston Brand. Now again, Boston Brand, we talked about him in the last video, basically a guy who's on the hunt for the person who killed him, quote unquote, but the general gist behind him is he's a disembodied spirit, meaning he inhabits the bodies of various people and then will like help folks along the way or different things like that. The problem with this is that in the middle of all this, everything seems to have gone awry. Like the city's in flames and it all seems to be falling apart. Now again, this is mystery building on mystery. We don't know what's going on here. The initial indication is that this is some kind of an attack or there's something going on in the city of Gotham, but we're not really given any information here. We're just kind of left to believe that things are just kind of popping off. And so in the middle of this, where Batman is really kind of watching the whole scene unfold, everything kind of goes a little hairy and a little gray for a second, and he's met by the Enchantress. Now again, Enchantress, basically being the demon that she is well known for just like possessing people's bodies. That's the basis behind her in the main DC universe. Her popping up here and speaking to Batman, to me, hits home with the idea of what's been going on. Where the Joker's basically dead, the Joker's body was pulled out of the water, and Batman had escaped from the water after falling off a bridge. All indications seem to point to the idea that like Batman killed the Joker. We don't really know if that's true or not. That kind of seems to be the case, but Enchantress showing up here as a being that inhabits the bodies of others and as a character who had visited Batman when he was younger seems to indicate the two of them are somehow connected. More so than that, when the bat signal goes up and it's got the smile of the Joker attached to it, Batman basically responds only to be met by the guy in the green cloak. Now again, the way that Azzarello's doing everything here, and it's very important that you take note of this, the way that Azzarello's doing everything here is he's basically kind of taking like a Marvel Ultimate Universe approach to like the DC landscape. And what I mean by that is the Ultimate Universe in Marvel Comics was designed to be very, very grounded in an answer to the question, what if superheroes in Marvel Comics existed in the real world? With this scenario here, the way things seem to be unfolding is very much a reflection of what the real world seems to be. And so this guy really looks like the Spectre. Like when you get down to it, like it looks like the Spectre. Now again, it doesn't have all the glitz and glamour and the larger than life and, you know, the wrath of God kind of, or I guess the judgment of God kind of persona that we normally expect from the Spectre, but it seems to have that appearance. Now, of course, Batman confronting this guy and basically saying like what in the heck is going on, you know, and this, you know, at least presuming he's a Spectre, saying like, I know what you did. Like I know what's been going on here. I know what, you know, I know the choice that you committed. Seems to indicate that one, it is true that the Batman killed the Joker. And if it is true, it begs the question, why doesn't he remember? And three, like it creates kind of a wrath sort of scenario where Batman literally starts losing his mind and attacking this guy. Now, of course, once it all pops off and once everything gets cleared, Batman gets pulled from the rubble by Etrigan and is kind of left to his own devices. He immediately takes off, responds to what's going on with the Joker face attached to the bat signal, only for it to appear as though the Joker's there. The problem with this is that when Batman takes these guys out, this is when things get kind of crazy. When Batman takes all these different henchmen out and confronts the Joker proper, it turns out to be Harley Quinn. And so this is cool because what it does is it actually shows the most logical progression of things. For the character of Harley Quinn in DC Comics, it was always one of those things where she was just kind of swindled into being part of the Joker's schemes, right? Like she was trying to quote unquote fix the Joker or make the Joker better. And the result was that she was essentially kind of shanghaied into joining the Joker's schemes when she was kind of brainwashed to a degree, or at the very least more enamored in romance by him. And if the Joker was really if Harley was really as romanticized with the Joker as we've been led to believe, if she was really that in love with the Joker, it makes perfect sense that when the Joker dies, Harley Quinn would step in and take his place. And the reason why is because it feeds into that whole idea of, you know, I am in love with the Joker will continue to live through me. So like it works. It really works, and it really comes together exceedingly well. I'm kind of sad that Azzarello doesn't really go a whole lot more into that than what we've seen, but it does work for the purpose it serves. The problem with this is that, you know, of course, where Harley Quinn manages to get the upper hand by literally injecting Batman with a syringe and temporarily knocking him out, and then goes to literally like undress herself and, you know, get it on with him in some weird twisted and sadistic situation, Batman in turn seems to like choke Harley Quinn to death, like literally pin her against the Batman, you know, the actual bat symbol, and like start choking her to death. Now, this is where we start to get into the idea of what's truly going on here. Enchantress presents herself, or at least seemingly in this story, presented herself to Bruce Wayne in a time of desperation, when it seemed like his life was on the precipice of falling apart and then began falling apart. And then what she did is when she presented herself to Bruce Wayne in that way, it was, I'm the one who can fix things for you. I can make things right. The idea seems to be here is that if Bruce Wayne's family was falling apart the way that it was, that as a child, he would do anything to keep it together. And not truly understanding what he was getting into, it seems as though that at a young age, Bruce Wayne sold his soul to Enchantress, or she took over his body in some form or fashion. I would argue that what you're seeing here is Moon and Enchantress, that kind of scenario playing out, where Enchantress comes out and then kills people and then goes away, and Bruce Wayne doesn't know what happened. And so it's entirely possible that Bruce Wayne killed the Joker, that Batman was actually the one who killed the Joker, but just doesn't remember ever doing it. But again, I'm kind of grasping at straws here. I don't explicitly know what exactly is going on, but I would argue that's the case, and the reason why is because the reflection in the water shows the Enchantress choking out Harley Quinn. And so that's what kind of seems to be happening, is that like Enchantress is the one who's possessed Bruce Wayne, and she's the one who's killing people. But of course, with Azzarello, it's all about twists and turns. And so just because things appear to be a certain way doesn't mean they are that way. I mean, it's really kind of tells us what's going on, but again, you know, it's just one of those crazy scenarios. But with that being said, guys, we're gonna go ahead and bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.